Welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to look at the aftermath of Hurricane Helene in Venice, Florida. We tried to get on Casey Key, which required waiting for half an hour for this drawbridge. That's a rotating bridge to get us on Casey Key. Only to find out once we got on the other side of the bridge, after waiting for 30 minutes, that the residents only sign. They should have put that in before the bridge would have made more sense, not after you waited half an hour. But there goes half an hour of my day waiting to get on Casey Key, only to find out that only residents are allowed on the island. My guess is the situation there is bad when they don't want outsiders going into the island. But keep in mind, Casey Key, the roads there are very narrow. There's only one road going north to south. It's very narrow. Where are they even going to put all the garbage when cars can barely fit through there? My guess, they're going to let people put the garbage out on the road and then move the garbage out before people can actually enter the island. Because if people enter the island when people are putting out their garbage, well, nobody's going to go anywhere. Because again, already as is, 2 cars can barely pass the road on Casey Key, which was a huge disappointment. But I figured, even as I'm driving through here, I'm thinking, how is my car even going to fit through Casey Key? By the way, if you want to see footage of Casey Key before the hurricane, I've done 2 videos in the last year of the island. So I'm really anxious to see what it looks like afterwards. It's going to be a huge mess on Casey Key. So we drove all the way back over the bridge again and got back on the mainland to see some of the hurricane aftermath on the other side of the water, because the island is completely inaccessible. It's going to be like that for a while. There's a lot of cleanup efforts and there's pretty much nowhere to store the garbage. In fact, the only place I can think of is parks, so you can expect most of the parking spots to turn into landfills. We hopped over into Nokomis. Now, we recently did a video in Nokomis in the poor trailer park area. This is the nicer side of Nokomis on the water, but now you can see that the nice part looks like crap as well because of the hurricane aftermath. 4 feet of water came through this neighborhood, leaving a lot of the residents having to throw everything away. Every once in a while, you'd see a house like this one where it looks like absolutely nothing happened. That's because they got to work right away. But you'll see cars abandoned, dumpsters picking up garbage, and of course, mud on the grass from the storm surge. This area was completely inundated, and you can tell there's spots like this where the mud just kind of settled, and now people are tearing out their houses. So it's going to be a mess in this neighborhood for a long time. After all, they are directly on the water, so the storm surge had a free entrance, no obstruction. Nokomis is just north of Venice, Florida, and let me tell you, there are some gorgeous properties here, especially on the water. All it takes is going 1 mile inland and you've got some pretty nasty mobile home parks. So contrast the area. Love the older house right there, kind of an older Florida cottage. I recently did a video in Nokomis, like I said, showing you guys the trailer park hoods that are there. So it's weird that we're back in Nokomis again, now showing hurricane destruction on the other side. You can see there's just some beautiful houses, beautiful palm trees, beautiful coconut trees in the back. It's a really nice neighborhood in a really nice area of Florida. These individuals here look like they were in the middle of some landscaping work. They were interrupted by the hurricane, but it looks like they're going to get right back to it. Beautiful landscaping work going in. Some of these houses really are gorgeous out here. I mean, these are the types of houses you would dream of being able to own someday. This area has a combination of newer homes and as well as historic buildings. You can see here natural limestone fences, older cottages. So the area has a nice diverse mix of older houses and newer houses. This gentleman here was picking up scrap metal in the area, and I asked him how much the scrap metal price was. He said right now they're getting paid something like $170 a ton, so scrap metal prices are really low. Despite that, I see a lot of people picking up scrap metal. You can see the storm surge made it all the way to US 41. Right here on US 41, you can see perhaps some of the storm surge may have even came over US 41. On the other side of US 41, you have kind of a more historic, older neighborhood. So again, this area has a weird combination of old buildings and then now a bunch of new buildings. There's kind of nothing in the middle, which is kind of interesting. You have stuff that's very old and you have stuff that's very new. It seems like construction stopped for about 30 to 40 years on this island and then picked right back up again. When I say island, I mean it's kind of surrounded by water in a way. It's not exactly an island, but it feels like an island. But let's run down to Venice. So now we're about to enter Venice. You'll notice that some of the trees are dead. That's because the storm surge, the salt water kills some of the plants. So when they get touched by the salt water, they die. That's why you see so many brown plants. Let's get into Venice and see what Venice looks like. Now, Venice, Florida has one of the nicest downtowns in the state with wide open areas, kind of medians that are very wide with vegetation, places for people to walk, kids parks, fountains, monuments. It's a very nice walkable downtown, and it seems like for the most part the storm surge did not reach downtown Venice. So downtown Venice seems to be 100% operational and normal. Now, Venice has had a hard time after hurricanes. Usually the red tide intensifies in this area and it prolongs itself more than anywhere else in the state. And we could also have that problem with this hurricane. Hopefully we don't. The issue with Venice is that for some reason or another, I believe the sand here is a darker color. It gets warmer, and that has something to do with the oxygenation level in the water temperature, and perhaps all that contributes to Venice having the worst red tide ever. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm not an ecologist, I'm just an idiot on YouTube, but I do believe that the warmer water temperatures here contribute to exactly that problem. Now, some of these condos and resorts look intact, but once you drive further down towards the Yeti is currently closed, so we can imagine that the destruction there is considerable since they're not letting people get back on that part of the island. And the Yeti points out into the Gulf, so it would make sense for the storm surge there to be pretty strong. Now, the water moved north to south, so anything that is parallel to that did really well, but anything that jots out to the east had a lot of destruction, and that's the case in the northern tip of Venice. That's why you can see here all the sand getting pushed over the roads. And again, the Yeti, the end of the inlet, that's a nasty situation over there. You can see the sign there, Yeti closed, and sure enough, there's no reason to go back there. It's all pretty much destroyed. And again, this is a beach that people go to, so other beaches are going to have to be supplementing this beach for now. This area here has water, a little canal on the other side with water on both sides. You can expect that a lot of destruction happened here. A lot of people had their cars flooded here. In fact, we're going to pass a resort up ahead where you're going to notice, or a condo, you'll notice that all the vehicles are parked on the grass. Those were individuals who stayed during the storm surge and then ran out and tried to save their vehicles by parking them on the grass. But of course, it didn't make a difference. The storm surge came up and destroyed their vehicles anyway. So I think the biggest problem here is damaged vehicles. You can see here how people try to park their vehicles on the high ground to save them, but it didn't work. If you left your vehicle here during a storm surge, you could have probably figured out what was going to happen. So over here, I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot of construction, a lot of rebuilding. You'll notice that some of the single-story bottom, they're already working on clearing those out. Obviously, the storm surge went in there and did some damage. But for the units further up, I think they're going to be okay. It wasn't that bad. The storm surge usually only gets the first floor, so there it is. The first floors all have to be gutted out. So over here on the left, there's like a food truck that's feeding the workers. And at least when we were there at around quitting time, there were mostly 95% Central Americans, Guatemalans, Salvadorians, Hondurans. So that's who's doing all the work around here. You can see here these houses, one of the few streets that did not have a no trespassing sign. I was able to roll through and show you guys the damage. Most of these communities near the water are either gated or they have a no trespassing sign, or they're closed off like KCK. So there's a lot more destruction to show you in the Venice area along the coast, but because they're private communities or they're gated or they're no residents only for now, I'm not able to show you guys that destruction. As soon as we're able to get in there, we will. After every single hurricane, there's always a YouTube creator that goes above and beyond the law to try to get you guys footage of areas that are forbidden at the time. They don't want to wait until everybody else is welcome. They want to be the first to get the footage. And there's a new law in the state of Florida that says that anybody who creates YouTube content with the intention of violating the law, and that's because of the reason they're getting the content. In the case of a hurricane, those individuals are going to have the new law that's in the state of Florida. That means that the money is going to be compensated by the state, and it's a criminal offense now. So to those individuals that are breaking the law and going into places they're not supposed to, they may not catch you right away, but eventually the state of Florida has the ability to prosecute you. So we're doing to the best of our ability, staying out of areas that we're not supposed to go in. When we see a roadblock that says residents only, we'll wait until they take down that sign, because it's not worth a legal prosecution over getting a dang YouTube video. Now, a lot of YouTubers come to the state of Florida from other states and are not aware that the state of Florida has these laws. They may find out the hard way. And after that law enforcement kind of has a monopoly on first-hand information, and their Facebook pages are blowing up because of these hurricanes. So basically, The intention of the law is to stop idiots from doing idiot things, but law enforcement agencies have now become like the prime news source in the state of Florida for new information, because anybody who's doing it commercially is afraid of the repercussions, where even if they get permission or the video gets sent to them, it just isn't worth the hassle. Really, the only option that you could have is to fly a helicopter over the area. I don't know what that costs, but it may be in the future my only option to literally rent a helicopter. I know during Hurricane Ian, people went on boats, but even I think those people had some legal consequences or the law bothered them. So basically, getting footage out of these areas, there are boundaries and you have to respect them to your best of your abilities. But there's always individuals who go above and beyond. Those individuals are being prosecuted by the state. So we'll have to wait for the content as the law enforcement allows people who are not residents to enter these areas. And it's okay, because there's so much destruction that I couldn't record it all in one day to begin with. So it's actually good that we can disperse this information little by little and not all at once, because then as a YouTuber, I couldn't cover all of it. Right now, I'm working for you guys 16-hour days. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, to get you guys all this content. On the north side of Venice, where we're driving now, there's some beautiful properties. Now, these properties have a good elevation. These very large lots of land with very expensive homes, they're going to spend the money to build up the lot. So a lot of these extraordinarily expensive houses, they're completely out of the flood zone. You'll notice there, the big banyan trees, there's a lot of large trees in Venice. It's really done great in avoiding the onslaught of hurricanes. Now, it's always affected by hurricanes. Venice is always affected to a degree by hurricanes, but it's never been like the epicenter of a hurricane, to where they have a lot of effects, but they haven't been destroyed yet. So there's a lot of very large mature trees here. But you'll notice that the larger properties, perhaps their garages could have got flooded, but the actual houses are much higher up. And again, these are properties that are into the millions of dollars. So of course, they're going to build them up and you're not going to see the entire property get destroyed. So when you get to these more expensive, more exclusive neighborhoods that are more money, they actually spend the money to put the houses higher up. And it seems like most of these more expensive houses did fairly well despite the storm surge, because they built them up to a higher elevation. A lot of the locals hate these mansions, but they stand up pretty well. This is the Sharkeys area where the city pier is. That area had 4 feet of water above the concrete at the beach. So all the coastal areas were flooded, but as you can see, downtown Venice in the evening is back to normal. So along the fringes, the areas near canals and along the waterways, you had about 4 feet of storm surge, but the vast majority of Venice is left untouched. There was almost no wind damage anywhere in Venice. I noticed a mobile home that had its roof flipped off, but that could have just been a weird one-off thing. For the most part, there was no wind damage, and the storm surge is limited to the coastal adjacent areas. Once you go half a mile in, there's literally no destruction, and life in Venice seems to be back to normal. The beaches in Sarasota County are currently closed, but that's not preventing people from going to the beaches, and law enforcement seems to be looking the other way. After all, a lot of people had their entire lives turned around, flips upside down, lost everything. The last thing they need right now is law enforcement to tell them they can't be on the beach. They may be going to meditate a little bit or just to relieve a little bit of the stress. So the law enforcement, even though technically the beaches are closed, the locals that are going to just kind of vent some frustration to the beach and meditate, law enforcement's not bothering them. If you're a tourist, I think the best thing you could do is head up to the East Coast for now. If you've already made plans to visit Southwest Florida, consider going to the eastern side of Florida. Try to get your plans on the other coast to give us a little bit of space and room to rebuild. But overall, the area is doing well and we will be able to recover. Most of the people affected by storm surge are wealthy people along the coast. They can definitely afford to rebuild. So it isn't this catastrophic loss of people who cannot rebuild. Unfortunately, the storm surge went from Naples all the way up to the Florida Panhandle, and there's parts of the Big Bend region that are poor and people cannot afford to rebuild like they can down here. And obviously, we were not able to get on the barrier islands. They had a 4-foot storm surge, and we would assume by the fact that we're not welcome back on these islands yet, that there's considerable destruction. I'm going to guess that these areas like Casey Key, Minnesota Key, Anna Maria Island, Bradenton Beach, all along the coast here, those areas are going to take a little bit longer to recover. So it may be a good idea to reconsider your travel plans. Avoid the Tampa metro area and Southwest Florida this year. head up to the East Coast or to the Florida Panhandle west of Panama City Beach. If you already have properties or plans to be in Venice or anywhere on the west coast of Florida, just be a little patient. There's going to be a lot more construction than usual, and that will be somewhat of a hindrance, but it should not deter you from coming to the area if you have business to handle. It's going to take a while, but overall, it wasn't catastrophic. The people on the beach, like I said, are very wealthy, and those that are coming down here who have plans to be in the area, you should be fine with your plans if you've already set yourself up to be here. It just isn't going to be the best experience, but again, this is expected in Florida beaches. Many people will lose their jobs because they depend on tourism, and tourism will take a massive hit. A lot of people are already reporting that they've lost their jobs, that they lost their housing. A lot of people are entering homelessness because of this hurricane. And if you make 40 to 45% of what you made during the last tourist season, consider yourself lucky. I think the areas that will fare the best are still going to take a 25% loss. Most areas that were heavily affected, possibly 40 or 45% of what they did last year, would be an accomplishment considering the circumstances. So that means a lot of people that work in tourism industries like hospitality, hotels along the coast, restaurants and bars, Uber drivers, anybody that depends solely on tourism, you can cut your gains almost in half. And in some areas, if you could obtain half of what you did last year, you're going to be lucky. This means we're going to face widespread homelessness, widespread loss of jobs, and it's going to contribute to an area that is already limited just to the tourist season for income. When you take that away, it leads to a lot of desperation. I think we're going to see a lot of road rage accidents, a lot of violence, a lot of homelessness, and a lot of criminal activity just because of the pressure people are under, losing their jobs, losing their house, not making enough money. All that puts people on edge, and the vibe is probably going to shift from a very positive beach vibe to a somewhat hostile vibe. People are going to be on edge, angry, and you're going to see that every day. More road rage, more horn honking, more angry people, individuals who are simply on edge because they've lost everything they had, or what they're trying to hold on to is more difficult since, of course, they depend on tourism, and tourism is never a stable source of income. On my channel, I have told you guys so many times how tourism is a detriment to the state of Florida, and the dependency on tourism and not other industries has brought the state of Florida and many people that live here to misery, hungry, and others even to homelessness, others to desperation. This is the state of Florida, a state that depends on tourism, but tourism can easily be wiped away in one single day. Some people have already resorted to scamming and fraud, as this person that called me during my recording. What's up, player? What's happening? We're live on Southern Life YouTube channel right now, exposing scammers. How are you? How are you doing? Are you scamming? Are you making a lot of money?
You don't have very much time on your hand for Jose's junk removal. You must not have a lot of clients, huh?
No, I don't. I don't have a lot of clients because I'm a YouTuber. I'm a YouTuber now. I'm a YouTuber now. We're live on YouTube.
Oh, you're a YouTuber.
I'm a YouTuber.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Well, good luck scamming people. Good luck scamming people. Get a real job. She's over here trying to do the old your listings not showing up on Google scam for a business that doesn't even exist. It's at least 4 to 5 years old. I can't remember the last time I ever had that business account. I think with a hurricane hitting Southwest Florida, the last thing a junk removal company needs is more advertisement. I think, I'm pretty sure they're going to be busy for a while. They're not going to need extra advertisement. The last thing this girl expected when she answered the phone today is that I would be like, yeah, we're live on YouTube exposing scammers. How are you, Melissa? How is your scam going? Apparently not too well.